Hi there everyone, my name is Christian Eschbach, and welcome to another one of my album reviews. So, when I had planned on doing this album, and we're talking about Black Sabbath's Technical Ecstasy, my entire plan had been to wrap up the Ozzy Osbourne Black Sabbath years, because I truly thought that's what I was doing when I picked this up. Because I've covered the original self-titled debut, Black Sabbath. And then I covered Zach Sabbath, which was Zakk Wylde covering the entire Black Sabbath album. Then I covered NIB, NIB2, which are both cover albums. Then I covered Sabbath Bloody Sabbath, Never Say Die, 13, Paranoid, Master of Reality. Hell, I've covered Dio's first two albums with Sabbath, Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules. What I did not realize was I have not covered Volume 4, Sabotage, or the Reunion album yet. So I can't properly wrap up the Ozzy era of Black Sabbath. But I'm going to. We're going to get to it. Alright, so here we go. Technical Ecstasy. This was the very last Sabbath album I've picked up. I just picked it up. Only within like the last 2 weeks. And much like the Never Say Die album, this is an album that heavily gets overlooked. Some cases, I understand how. Other cases, totally confuses me how this album's been overlooked. And the songs that do get representation kind of blow my mind a little bit. It's weird. 8 songs on this album. Black Sabbath, heavily coked out. You can hear it on this album. And I mentioned this on the Alice Cooper live album as well, about how you could hear the cocaine on the album. And this one I'm saying how you can hear the cocaine on the album. And I explained in that review how you can notice the difference. Now, another thing I left out on that one, which I'm going to point out here, because with live albums is one thing, with studio albums it's another thing. I've personally recorded an album with a band while we were all dusted. Alright? And there is just a certain thing that happens when you're both heavily into a binge and you're just lately experimenting with, okay? This album, even though they're heavily into a binge, sounds like it's more like they're experimenting with. It's kind of crazy, man, because this one's just a wild album. The other thing that is really interesting with this album compared to all the other Sabbath albums is as you move along in the Sabbath albums, the sound quality and the production quality gets better. You know, it sounds more and more vibrant, especially with all these remasters. They sound more and more vibrant. They sound like they're more and more modern. This album feels like they stepped back into the Beatles' Abbey Road. You know, and there's one song in particular I'm going to point this out on later on, but like the quality in general reminds me of some of the earlier Beatles kind of recordings for Abbey Road, you know. But let's get into the songs on this album, right? So the album opens up with Backstreet Kids. This song's really fast, really crazy. You blink and you miss it. Every time I start working on the review for this, or I start listening and planning for the review for this, I actually have to go back and re-listen, because by the time I get everything all set up and I'm all sat down, I'm chilled out, the song's already sped through, and I'm like, what the hell was the first song? And that goes with the flip side of this song, which is, unfortunately, it's not very memorable, because even now, if I did not have notes written down, it'd be like, it is Fast, it's Furious. It starts off the album Fast and Furious. Then you go into You Won't Change Me. Oh, the keyboards. This album is just soaked in keyboards. And not bad, actually. I really like the keyboards and the synth throughout the whole entire album, and I'll mention that as I go through. This is a much different track from the previous song. And in all honesty, this actually reminds me of something that might have been on Blizzard of Oz. Possibly, you know, one of the albums after Blizzard, but, you know, definitely Randy Rhoads era. And it would have been an album cut, but it still would have been in that time period. Iommi has some great intermixed guitar lines in here. Like I said, it's heavy synth, but the guitar lines that are intermixed in here, they're really cool. And that's one thing that, you know, it doesn't sound like it would be from Ozzy's solo era. Then we go into the song, It's Alright. Favorite song off this album. This song does not feature Ozzy singing. This song features Bill Ward singing, the drummer who wrote the song. Because drummers can write songs too, and they can write really good songs. Now, it's funny, because when I picked this up, I was able to sing along with this song right off the bat. And I couldn't figure out how the hell I knew this song. And I seriously, right up until I sat down to do this review, and while the song was playing, I started looking online to figure out where the hell I knew the song from. I thought this was a Beatles song at first. I thought maybe it was a cover. And then I'm like, nope, it's definitely a Black Sabbath song. I went and checked everything. And then I'm sitting there and I'm going through it. I'm racking my brain. How do I know this song? I've been singing this song for over 20 years. Because it is on the Guns N' Roses Live Era Double Live album. Cover they put on there with Axl doing a piano rendition. Seriously racked my brain forever trying to figure out how I knew this song so well. It's a great song. This version, way better even than the GNR cover version, obviously. But yeah, just brilliant song. I love this song. I would do a cover of this song in a second. It is a fantastic song. Then you get into the song Gypsy. Who, musically, this song is fucking spectacular. The whole way around, this song is spectacular. Lyrically, the song has not aged well at all. Realistically, this is another one that honestly feels like it should be Ozzy solo material, not Black Sabbath. So it's really interesting with this album how much, because I'm going to mention this again as well. But the song Gypsy, I mean, okay, so if you're one of my regular viewers and you've watched like everything I've ever released, you might have heard me mention once or twice my daughter's name, or not my daughter, but my daughter-in-law's name is Gypsy. And it's actually Gypsy Rose. She's named after the famous burlesque dancer. And so I have a different take where I'm not crazy or stupid about the use of the word gypsy like a lot of people are. But that's the toss-up. A lot of people are a little crazy about it, so you gotta kind of be mindful that way. So because of that, this song definitely doesn't hold up. Then we get into Rock and Roll Doctor. This is a good party tune, but it's still a throwaway song. You know, it's kind of about it. I feel like I know Rock and Roll Doctor from somewhere else as well, and this is another one that definitely feels like it would be kind of like an Ozzy solo song. Less Black Sabbath, more just Ozzy on his own. Then you got She's Gone. This one, Revelation Mother Earth off of Blizzard of Oz. Right? This one feels like it should be the demo for it. Like, it's really honestly that close to the original. Like, crazy. I mean, not the original, sorry. It's really crazy close, though, to Revelation Mother Earth. And then the album finishes off with Dirty Women, and it's really funny because Dirty Women, this is the only song on this album I knew actually as, you know, Black Sabbath performing it, because it's on the Reunion album, which, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't covered yet. And they are slightly different. It's actually kind of interesting when you hear the Reunion version versus, because I had to go compare them. Because I was thinking they don't quite sound the same, and they don't. There's definitely differences in it, and I'm not a big fan of either song, either rendition of it. If I had to pick between the two, I kind of like where they went with the reunion one, but I'd rather hear that variation done on a studio album. And I still don't understand why, of all the songs they could have picked off this album, they went with Dirty Women. Not a fan of the song. Really not. In the book, there's some great notes in here and stuff. I'll be honest, I haven't read it yet. I've only looked at the pictures, but it shows you inspiration for the cover, where it came from. I do like a lot of the artwork that's in here. It's actually really cool. Ozzy looks kind of bland. Iommi is really cool with his little circuit coming out there. Breaker, fuse box panel thing. What's really cool about this also is this album was, what, 77? 76. This album was 76. And with it being in 76, circuitry and stuff like that weren't as prominent. So it would have been a lot more, I want to say, steampunk inspired. Less computer inspired. Actually, I mean, like, when you're looking at this is more like I want to say, an Art Deco. But even still, you know, like, you're talking about styles that, you know, are, at this point, the introduction of them, like, Art Deco would be, what, 100 years old almost now? Getting close there. 80 years old if you want to go with the 50 usage of Art Deco, but I believe Art Deco started technically back in the 30s. This picture of Geezer Butler and Bill Ward, I like these a little better. I like the Tony Iommi one. The Geezer Butler one here, it's a little more simplistic. It's a little more kind of like, you know, hey, let's do them up kind of in a cubism kind of way, which is kind of cool. This one I like having the actual gears and machinery in his face. I think that's really nifty that way too. And it does look like different songs were released as singles. Like, it looks like It's Alright was released Japan. Gypsy was Yugoslavia. Let's see if we got any other ones. It's Alright and Rock and Roll Doctor were released as a single in Holland. I think that's just a cool picture in general. Anyways. Like Never Say Die. This album's not necessarily for all Ozzy fans. I would recommend this album as a good album just to throw on in the background and kind of mess with people a little bit. It is a really good album. I dig it. As much as I undersell the album, if this had been an Ozzy album, not a Black Sabbath album, but an Ozzy album, my view towards it might be a little bit different than it is. I might be more inclined to heavily recommend it. And if you look at it as more of an Ozzy album, less of a Black Sabbath album, that might be the way to go with it. Maybe look at it as, you know, each guy throwing their own individual songs in. Anyways, would I say get it? It's interesting to pick up. Might be worth checking out. Is it for everybody? No. Anyways, hit the like button, the subscribe button, the bell for notifications. Let me know what you think about the album in the comment section below. While you're going down below, I would like you to also check out the link to Patreon. Peace, love, take care.